What happens when a legendary pirate adventure is brought back and rebuilt with a modern design philosophy that focuses more on smoother movement, deeper systems, and a streamlined single-player experience? Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced takes one of the most iconic entries in the series and reworks it into a more fluid, system-driven experience built around combat refinement, naval expansion, and a cleaner presentation structure. While the core identity of piracy, freedom, and conflict remains intact, this version shifts the emphasis towards modern gameplay flow and player control. But with these changes comes a clear question. Does this new version enhance the original version, or does it strip away some of the characters that made it so memorable in the first place? Let's break it down. The story of Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced follows Edward Kenway during the height of the golden age of piracy, but with a noticeable shift in structure and focus compared to the original 2013 version. Instead of balancing between modern day sequences and historical flashbacks, this version streamlines the narrative into a more direct character focused journey with greater emphasis on Edward's personal development and the consequences of his ambition. At the start of his journey, Edward is a man driven purely by opportunity, leaving behind his life in the Royal Navy. He seeks wealth and freedom on the high seas, believing that the world of pirates offers a path to quick power and independence. However, this idealized view quickly collapses as he becomes entangled in a much larger conflict between factions competing for control over the mysterious and highly valuable artifact. As Edward meets and works alongside famous pirates and figures in the era, his journey begins to shift from pure self-interest into something more complex, where relationships, forms, alliances are tested, and the line between survival and greed begins to blur. What starts as a pursuit of gold gradually evolves into a story about identity, loyalty, and the price of living without a clear moral direction. This version of the story places much more weight in internal conflict and personal evolution, solving how Edward's decisions shape not only his own future, but also the people and world around him. Over time, the narrative pushes him towards a slow realization that freedom without purpose can be just as limiting as bound servitude. At its core, this is a tale about ambition colliding with consequence. A man trying to find balance in a world that rewards self-interest but demands sacrifice. The presentation in Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced is a clear step up in technical fidelity, even if it doesn't completely reinvent the visual identity of the original game. Visually, the world looks sharper, cleaner, and more detailed, with noticeable improvements to character models, lighting, and environmental textures. The Caribbean setting still carries that same iconic beauty, but now feels more defined and visually stable, especially during ocean sections where the water simulation and light reflections play much bigger role in selling scale and depth. The sound design remains one of the strongest elements of the experience. Combat sounds carry real weight, the swords, clashes, the gunshots, and movement effects feeling more grounded and responsive. Even simple actions like climbing, landing, and navigation ship decks have a tactical audio feel that helps sell immersion during both land and naval gameplay. The music, however, is largely familiar with actual returning players. The pirate-inspired soundtrack still delivers that signature identity, but there are a few significant additions that change the overall musical experience. Instead, it relies on the strength of the original compositional work to carry much of the atmosphere. Performance is consistent and smooth, with the Xbox Series X version running at a stable 60 frames per second. This actually makes a noticeable difference during naval combat, especially where fast turning, cannon fire, and large-scale ship encounters benefit from responsive and stable performance. Overall, the presentation feels modernized and clean, even if it sometimes plays it safe in the terms of new creative direction. The gameplay in Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced builds upon the original. The gameplay in Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced builds upon the original foundation and pushes it towards a more fluid, system-driven action experience that blends land combat, stealth, naval exploration, and seamless world transitions into one connected loop. Combat has been refined to feel more direct and responsive, with a greater emphasis on weapon usage and player input timing. Dual sword fighting takes center stage, while actual new systems such as chain takedowns and improved ability-based moves add more variety to encounters. A more universal crouch system also makes stealth feel less restricted, while the tools like smoke bombs and rope darts provide more flexibility during both infiltration and escape scenarios. On the Naval side, the Jackdaw feels more responsive and customizable than before, with expanded combat options and a greater variety of sea-based interactions, cannon fires, broadside engagements, and naval chases. It actually feels more fluid, while the additions of more sea shanties and improved ship flows helps maintain atmosphere during long usage across the Caribbean. Exploration has also been streamlined through a more seamless world structure. Transitions between sailing, docking, and on-foot movement feels less segmented than before, which helps the world feel more connected and continuous. Underwater exploration has been freed up as well, giving more of us players more control over when and how they choose to explore beneath the surface rather than being limited to scripted sections. Overall, the gameplay is designed around flow, responsiveness, and modernization, making everything feel more connected even when multiple systems are working at once. Despite its improvements, Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced introduces several design choices that may not sit well with longtime fans of the original experience. One of the most noticeable changes is the removal of traditional movement structures such as the high and low profile systems in its classic form. This impacts how parkour and general movement feel, making some sections less precise than before. I also noticed moments where control responsiveness breaks slightly, such as not being able to jog while carrying objectives, which can slow down certain explorations or escort style sections. Another point of controversy comes from animation and presentation changes. Certain combat movements or moments like double assassinations no longer transition as smoothly as they did in the original game. Instead of seamless animations, the game relies more on quick camera cuts, which makes some action sequences feel less fluid and more scripted than before. Character direction has also been slightly adjusted, particularly in the way of Edward actually is basically portrayed early on. His original arc began with a strong focus on self-interest and greed before gradually evolving into something more meaningful. This version introduces a more sympathetic tone early on, which actually reduces some of the sharpness of his original character progression. Finally, one of the most significant omissions in the complete removal of actual multiplayer. The original Black Flag experiences introduces a unique multiplayer mode that helped extend the longevity and offered a different style of play. Its absence here makes the version feel more limited in terms of content variety. Even if this is an actual single player experience, it's supposed to be stronger and more focused, but it lacks that depth of multiplayer. Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced is a modernized reimagining that improves performance, refines gameplay flow, and deepens naval and combat systems while streamlining the overall experience into a more cohesive package. However, these improvements come at a cost of some original mechanical depth, animation fluidity, and content variety, especially with the removal of multiplayer and certain movement systems. It is an actual version that feels smoother and more modern, but somewhat different in the spirit from the original release. For that, I give Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced a 4 out of 5. Thank you for tuning into the Gamer Section, your home for independent gaming reviews, impressions, and coverage. If you enjoyed this review, make sure you actually like, comment, and subscribe for more gaming content just like this on the Gamer Section.